Is the world's best 650 horsepower sports car rear-engined like this Porsche 911 Turbo? Or is it mid-engined like this McLaren Artura? Or front-engined like this brand new Aston Martin Vantage?
These are three very different cars. Engine position, engine configuration, transmission, body style, all different. There's barely anything in common except that they all have between 650 and 700 horsepower, they all cost between 165 and 200,000 pounds, and they're all going after exactly the same buyer. Before we start searching for a winner, please remember to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another video from the intercooler. The 911 Turbo S is the most familiar car here and due to be replaced very soon. It's the most practical, usable car in the class with small rear seats and four-wheel drive, but that won't be enough to earn it victory.
No, it'll need to be thrilling to drive as well. Now, the Turbo is not trying to be the most scintillating model in the 911 lineup. That's what the GT3s are for. But this car still does need to be exciting. Earlier versions of the 911 Turbo were blisteringly fast, and they were fantastic to use through winter. They were really easy to live with as well. That's sort of what the 911 Turbo thing is all about. But they're also quite numb, quite blunt machines. But for me, this 992 version takes a step in the right direction just by being that little bit more engaging, that little bit more interactive. You just sort of feel a little bit more when you tip it into a corner. You feel the grip building, you feel the body roll. So it's not quite so remote as other 911 Turbos can be. But is that enough for this Porsche to stand up in this competition?
With 641 brake horsepower from a twin-turbo flat-six plus four-wheel drive traction, the 911 Turbo S remains one of the very fastest cars on the road. In bad weather, almost nothing will keep up.
These cars have always been about their engines. The clue's on the boot lid, isn't it? Turbo. It's always about that bit there. Through the mid-range, when you put your foot down in second, third or fourth, and just the massive thrust that you feel, that shove in the back. When you launch one of these cars from a standstill, it's still about the most violent thing you can do in a car apart from crash it. The performance is mighty in this thing. It's not the sharpest, most responsive turbo engine going. I don't really mind. That's not really what I want from a 911 Turbo. I want that building boost, that shove, that thrust. And you don't really chase the red line in this car because you just want to get back into the torque. The PDK transmission is just pretty much flawless. It's so quick. So why does this car take a step in the right direction for 911 Turbos? It's just a bit more connected. There's a little bit more going on through the steering wheel. You get more of a sense of the grip building down the side of the car. The four-wheel drive system is brilliant. It puts down all of the power and torque. It just doesn't waste it. But it actually does allow you to sort of toy with the car's balance in a very tight corner. As you're coming out the bend, put your foot down. You can make the thing slide if you want to. So there is fun to be had in this car, there really is. But compared to other 911s, compared to other sports cars, it is still quite a blunt, quite a numb device. It's way more sledgehammer than scalpel. Talking of scalpels, let's go and have a go in the McLaren.
The Artura is the most technically advanced car here. Carbon fibre construction to save weight, a hybrid system for added performance and efficiency, and all the benefits of a mid-engined layout.
Immediately this thing feels a world apart from the 911 Turbo S. Just to sit in it, you're so reclined. Your feet are way out in front of you, the steering wheel comes all the way out to meet you. It feels like a way more focused and purposeful car than the 911 Turbo. That's the impression that you get just to sit in it. Normally you would expect the mid-engine supercar to be the least usable of the bunch, the least sort of livable with. But McLarens aren't really like that. This one, for instance, it's got the best ride comfort of any car here. The ride really is amazing in this car. It's also got great visibility. That's a proper McLaren hallmark. You can just see all around you like you're in a goldfish bowl. It's not very mid-engine supercarish at all. So yeah, it does feel more purposeful, more focused than the 911, but not to the point where you get in it and you just think, I can't put up with this.
The lightest of the bunch by almost 150 kilograms, the McLaren is also the most powerful. It's just been updated and now has 690 brake horsepower.
On paper, the McLaren should be the fastest car here, and by a distance as well. It's the most powerful and it's the lightest. And it is so quick. Searingly quick is the right word. It is searingly quick. It pulls your face off. This is a hybrid, of course, a V6 hybrid. And what that hybrid gives you is really sharp throttle response. This Artura has throttle response like earlier McLarens could only dream of. However, like earlier McLarens, all of the performance is still at the top end beyond 6,000 RPM. So that's how you make this thing go fast. You keep your foot in, you keep it spinning away at 6,000 to 8,000 RPM. And that's where you tap into the fullness of its straight line performance. This is the only car here with hydraulic steering. That means it's got the best steering. It's really lovely. It's not too quick, it's not too light. There is a sense of connection. It does steer beautifully. Then you've got that fantastic ride, really good body control, the kind of body control that you can only have in a relatively light car. Massive agility, phenomenal grip. Yeah, the chassis is spectacular. Feel so connected to this car, that's the thing. You know exactly what's going on. You feel the road beneath you. You feel the grip rise and fall. It's very different to that 911 Turbo S. You want to be a better driver. I know this because everybody who loves cars wants to become a better driver, and I'm going to help you do just that. This is Steve Sutcliffe. He's maybe the best driver that car journalism has ever produced. He once lapped Jenson Button's Formula One car around Silverstone within half a second of the official test driver. He's that good. Steve has written the definitive guide to becoming a more skillful, safer, faster driver for the intercooler, and I'm going to share it with you completely free. All you need to do is click the link on screen or in the description below and enter your name and email address. Over 3 weeks, I'm going to send you Steve's comprehensive guide straight to your email inbox.
The Vantage is the newest car here, though it's a development of the 2018 model rather than an all-new car. Even so, people say this is the best Aston Martin sports car for a very long time.
There is a new regime at Aston Martin full of former Ferrari execs and engineers. And you know what? It's really starting to show in the cars. The new buzzword at Aston Martin at the moment is intensity, certainly for the sports cars. And that's what they're trying to do. That's what all those former Ferrari people are trying to do, is build more intense, more energetic, more vibrant sports cars. They don't want anyone to look at this and think it's an old man's GT. And you sense that the moment you start driving this car. It's got attitude. It's got a fiery temper. It's a bit of a thug, a bit of a hooligan. And I think I really quite like that about this car. The previous Vantage, the one that this replaces, was a fine car, and it got better and better as its life went on. The F1 edition was absolutely fantastic, but for some reason, it never quite grabbed me. I would never say that I loved that car. I think this one is starting to put those wrongs right.
The new interior is much improved with a far better infotainment system and switchgear. Everything else has been reworked too. The suspension, steering, twin-turbo V8, brakes, tyres, styling, everything has been honed, refined, or changed altogether. The Mercedes AMG engine produces 656 bhp, thanks in part to bigger turbos.
Aston Martin is telling a massive fib with this car. Massive fib. There is no way that this thing has any less than 700 horsepower, I'm telling you. The engine's so potent. It's like a bomb going off anytime you stand on the throttle pedal. Through the mid-range, this is one of the most forcefully, violently accelerative cars I've driven in a very long time. There's so much muscle, so much torque. It feels like it's going to light up the rear tyres in third and fourth. It's not like the McLaren where all the performance is right at the top end. In this one, it's through the mid-range and it's so violent. It sounds great as well. It's not the sharpest, most responsive turbo engine, but honestly, I don't mind because it's got so much character. Everything else then, steering, pin sharp, really nice rate of response. The chassis is so taut, so well tied together. Body control is fantastic. It's got real agility, great balance, masses and masses of grip on these bespoke Michelins. The chassis is exceptional in this car. Great engine, good gearbox as well. It's the only car here that doesn't have a dual clutch transmission. It's still an automatic, but it's really quick, it's really responsive, it's fine. But the ride is pretty firm. On some of the bumpier roads around here, you find yourself leaping up and down in your seat, and that's in the softest setting. Also, in normal driving, particularly at low speeds, the ride is a bit annoying. For me, they've been a bit greedy with the spring rate. I think it's just a bit too stiff, because you want to be able to live with this car. But put that to one side, oh my God, the chassis is remarkable. And I suppose the most important thing is that it's an experience. Aston Martin and all those former Ferrari people set out to build an intense sports car. Bloody hell, they've done it, they've done it. This new Vantage, it's an impressive car. I think we should go and find Andrew Frankel and see if we can declare one of these cars the winner. We're here really to determine exactly how good the new Aston Martin Vantage is.
Yeah.
Which is why we've laid on the toughest competition for it.
As tough as it gets.
It really is, yeah.
In two completely different ways, which is nice.
This is the point, isn't it? So we're starting out with the 911 Turbo S, which is the sort of do-everything supercar, really, isn't it? All season, all reason.
Right at the end of its life.
Yeah.
I mean, this car actually, which is the standard road car, you can't even buy anymore. You can only buy, what do they call it, the 50 years?
Yeah, because it is 50 years
of the 911 Turbo. But the 50 years is just a pure cosmetic upgrade in terms of its mechanical, its setup, everything else, completely representative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 911 Turbo, it is the do-it-all supercar, isn't it?
Yes.
You can use it all through winter. You can use it every day if you wanted to. We know that about the 911 Turbo, but is that enough in the context of this test, this assessment?
Well, I think that's what we're here to find out, isn't it? Because, you know, you can still buy a 911 for under £100,000, just base Carrera. Okay, this is, even if you don't have the 50-year stuff on it, it's £181,000.
Yeah.
With the 50-year stuff, it's a £200,000 car, and is a standard. So we're not talking GT3 RSs or STs or anything else. Is a standard production 911 at that level when it's not up against, you know, other things, Mercedes and BMWs, but it's up against McLarens and Aston Martins. Does it get found out? Does it? Is there? I mean, it's still unbelievably fast and quick and point to point, and in many ways great to drive. But it's not my favourite 911, even among the standard cars, let alone the GT3s and that sort of thing. Yeah. And so I guess one of the questions we came here to find out is whether it can hold its own in this kind of company. Not for point-to-point speed or anything as prosaic as that, but does it feel special enough?
Yeah. And your view?
No.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
The curious thing about the 911 Turbo, and I think by chance you've turned up today in a totally different 911.
Yeah, I've turned up in, this is the most expensive, complex, standard 911 you can get. I happen to have turned up in a two-seat T. Yeah. Manual, rear drive, base spec engine. I'd rather knock about than that.
Yeah, so
I really would.
It doesn't have the sort of crushing performance of this.
But
it doesn't have the four-wheel drive,
no.
But it is a nicer, sweeter, more enjoyable car to drive, isn't it?
Massively lighter.
It's a better sports car.
Better sports car. Better driver's car.
Yeah.
And that's what a 911 is.
Okay,
anyway.
so I think it's quite clear that this isn't our winner. So
yeah, maybe.
Let's move it along then to the McLaren Artura.
Yeah.
Now, you've lived with one of these cars for 6 months or so.
6 months, yeah.
So you can tell us a great deal about what it's actually like to live with.
Yeah. What I find so beguiling about the Artura is, apart from getting in and out, which is more difficult than it should be, and it annoys me that they, despite the fact it's got an all-new tub, they haven't made that process any easier with this car than with any of the previous cars.
Yeah.
What is amazing about it, though, is just how livable this car has become. With the new HMI, human machine interface, with the hybrid, which means you can leave home at 4 o'clock in the morning and sneak past all your neighbours and they'll never know you're there, with the torque that you get and the throttle response,
That's it, yeah.
which you never used to get with the V8, because with the V8 you always had to have all the revs on before it would fly. This thing, I was doing some up and down the road tests of it earlier, and 2,000 revs, it's off.
It does just go.
Yeah.
But what I like about this hybrid engine, you've got that throttle response, you've got that a good mid-range, but if you want to get everything out of it, you still need to get it up at 6, 7, 8,000 RPM.
And that is why I think, and we'll get onto the Vantage in a minute, but I don't think it sometimes feels as quick as it is.
Yeah.
Because to get it to do what it can do, you've got to be using all the revs.
Yeah.
Whereas a car which had, you know, a more even spread of torque, or even more low down, like a big banger V8, then it's there at 2,000. So it's interesting. I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong, but it's very much a sports car, McLaren, high revving, high power approach, isn't it?
Now, we should just acknowledge one thing, and the keener viewers among you...
I wasn't going to mention this.
you will have spotted this join here, and perhaps in a couple of other places.
Spider!
This car is a Spider.
Yeah.
But for these purposes, and because the McLaren, all McLarens have carbon fibre tubs, you don't really notice. If you've got the roof on, it feels like a coupe.
It feels like a coupe. And the other thing is that normally, if you did this to a car, because of all the extra structural bits you'd have to put on it just to keep it torsionally rigid, you know, the weight would go up hundreds of kilos. This goes up 60 kilos.
Yeah.
So actually, to drive, it's basically the same.
So we wouldn't normally put a convertible car up against coupe cars.
Yeah.
This was the only one that was available. But because of the carbon tub, because it's so stiff anyway, because the weight addition is quite modest, this car is still highly representative of a coupe Artura. So it's not it's not
almost indistinguishable.
It's not disadvantaged.
Not in any way.
No, not in any way.
What do you think of the engine? Is it good enough? Does it sound good? Is there a sufficient sense of occasion to it?
It's a bit more of it's a less tuneful device than the Ferrari V6 hybrid, for instance.
Yeah.
It's not very characterful. It's not that, it doesn't really sing much of a song, but it's damn effective.
Yeah.
I think I like it.
I like it. To me, it's more than a device for doing a job.
Yeah.
You know, we were here not that long ago with a C63 estate with a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine in it, and that, if ever there was a thing where the powertrain was just a device for doing a job, that's the car. For it's more than that. To me, it is more tuneful than the V8. They've actually, for this latest model year, spent some time fiddling with the exhaust, trying to make it sound a bit more. It's not like as good as a 296 GTB, but it's certainly not a reason to not get the car.
No, that's true. And in terms of steering, ride, handling, all the chassis stuff,
outstanding.
It's a McLaren.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got the best ride here. It's got the best steering here. The visibility, which is so important. You know, it's a mid-engine car. You'd think it'd have the worst visibility here. In fact, it's damn near as good as the 911s. Just to go up a road, turn into a corner, feel every bump, every nuance, and just feel so secure and planted in the car. And the speed at which it gets around those corners. This car's actually on Pirelli P0 Corsa tyres.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd lose much just having it on a standard zero, and it would be better in all weathers and probably have slightly better ride quality, but even so, the chassis on this car is magnificent.
Yeah, if what matters most to you is that interaction, man and machine, feeling everything, of the three here, the McLaren is the one that does that best.
Definitely.
So,
here it is.
On to, I guess it's the star of the show, it is the new kid.
Yeah.
The new Aston Martin Vantage. My goodness, it's got attitude, this car, hasn't it?
Everywhere, oozing out of it.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And even just to look at it, it actually looks like the 177 in terms of the proportions, the width, the stance. Yeah. It's an amazing thing to look at.
What I like about the way that it looks is if someone comes up to you and says, well, what's that car like to drive? You just say, look at it. That's how it drives.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that car's appearance which isn't fulfilled in full by the driving experience beneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite different for an Aston Martin, really. You know, not too long ago, even a Vantage was sort of leaning towards being a Grand Tourer.
Yeah.
But this
sports
is
car.
pure sports car.
Pure sports car. But maybe there's a downside to that. What did you think of the ride?
It's too busy.
On
It
these
is.
roads?
It is too busy.
Yeah.
On the really bumpy roads out there,
Yeah.
you find yourself leaping about a little bit, you're coming out of your seat. And in terms of ride comfort at low speed around town, thumping through sort of potholes and stuff, it would annoy me.
Yeah.
I think they've...
I don't think it's a deal breaker.
No.
And, you know, I think Aston Martin would say, you know, if you want a car that is that dynamic, that responsive, that's what you have to do. I think McLaren would say, well, no, take a quarter of a tonne out of it.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to do those things.
Yeah.
It's an interesting debate. And also where the engine is, you know, you've got to have a lot of weight on the nose, very stiff spring. It's a really interesting to see the two completely different approaches that they've taken between the lightweight mid-engine McLaren and the, frankly, what's the heaviest car here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it's only got 2 seats, unlike the 911, and it's got, you know, it's got an aluminium chassis, aluminium body
not
panels,
four-wheel drive.
unlike the 911, hasn't got 4-wheel drive. It still weighs 100 kilos more than the 911.
Yeah. It's quite a chunky car, isn't it?
Yeah. Then again, I don't really need an Aston to be super light. To me, that's not what Aston Martins are.
No, it's not.
I
that
like
modern.
a bit of heft. I like a bit of, you know, meat to the steering. So I'm not that bothered by it as long as it doesn't interfere too much with other stuff. Let's talk about the powertrain.
Oh my goodness me. The engine, so I say in the film that they're fibbing about the power that this thing has.
I mean,
It has to begin with a 7.
thing is, it's got, what is it, 660 something horsepower?
Yeah.
So it's got the worst power to weight ratio here.
Yeah.
Don't feel like that out there, does it?
Goodness me.
It's an
no.
absolute monster.
It's so quick.
The way it gets up the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
I love it.
extraordinary. Sounds great as well.
Yeah. To me, I mean, of the three of them, that's the powertrain.
Proper V8 soundtrack.
Proper, you know, it's just an old-fashioned twin turbo, 90-degree crank V8 engine, and it just sounds thunderous.
Yeah, it does.
It's actually, I know it's a Mercedes engine, it's an AMG engine, but it so suits the Aston Martin, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
It works beautifully.
Beautifully.
It's a really good cabin now.
Yeah.
There are a couple of bits and pieces in there that I think they need to fix for the facelift. Things like some of the typefaces are teeny,
Yeah,
tiny.
very small.
You need to plug your phone in for CarPlay to work.
Yes. That doesn't actually bother me very much,
No.
but some people it does, and that's fair enough. And I think there's a danger, which people like me are guilty of breathing such an enormous sigh of relief because it's so much better than the atrocious system that it replaced, that you kind of think, oh, therefore it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's not. It looks lovely, it works well enough, but it's by no means some kind of like paragon of how a car and a human being ought to interact with each other.
No, but the whole interior, even just the design, I mean, the design of the previous Vantage cabin was quite messy.
Yes.
This is
cheap.
much better.
It feels premium.
Yeah.
Were you surprised when you look at these three cars? I reckon if you took somebody off the straight and said, which is by far the cheapest car here?
Yeah.
I don't think they'd point at that.
No chance.
I think they'd point at the Porsche, wouldn't
They
they?
would. They'd point
Yeah.
at the Porsche, absolutely.
This
And in
is
fact,
this is 20 grand less than that Porsche, let alone the one you can buy.
yeah, that is amazing. It's a good point.
Although I bet it wouldn't take long to get this up to that sort of money when you start playing with the the options.
Aston Martin will happily let you spend an enormous sum on a Vantage.
Enormous amount of money, yes.
I've been astonished by this thing today.
It's mega, isn't it?
It really is mega. It's not perfect, and we've discussed its flaws, but goodness me, it's got character, and that's the most important thing, really.
It's an Aston Martin, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, somebody who is, you know, who has bathed in the waters of Aston Martin for half a century, I kind of think I know what an Aston Martin should be, and that is an Aston Martin.
Yeah. Is it the best sports car here?
This was not an easy one to call. After much deliberation, we finally agreed on a winner, the McLaren Artura. It should be no surprise that the lightest car in the test, the one with the best steering, ride, body control, chassis balance and throttle response, is the winner. The 911 Turbo S is the year-round sports car and the best daily, but it falls a long way short of the competition when it comes to sheer thrills. And the Vantage, it's fantastic, a landmark for Aston Martin. In the way it looks, goes and sounds, and in the way it makes you feel, it has a charm all of its own, but it can't match the technical brilliance of the McLaren. Thank you for watching. Remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another video from the Intercooler.